Been a long time. Been a long time. The last time, myself, Daniel Hardy, along with my good buddy and co-host, Dr. Thomas Bevilacqua, spoke with Matt Brooks of Nets Daily. It was a whole different world. About 7 months ago, and we were previewing the Warriors-Nets game, Kevin Durant's return to the Bay. But that moment never happened because the coronavirus lockdowns happened like that week. Back in that time frame, in an alternate timeline, I remember the Brooklyn Nets were wondering who the next coach was going to be. We were asking questions like, hey, Mark Jackson, he'd be a nice fit, or maybe Tom Thibodeau. Yeah. And I remember your words were, man, I really love Ty Lue. I really love Ty Lue.
Those are words no one wants to say, or no one should ever say.
So now that you don't have Ty Lue, are you disappointed, Matt? Are you upset, Matt?
I like Nash so far. I mean, like he's very Kerr. He's very Kerr-esque. Like just in a lot of ways, we'll see what it looks like on the court. But just in terms of like his philosophies and what he holds important, he seems like a really good communicator in that way. So I think culturally, I actually feel pretty good about where they're at. I mean, it just, rather than bringing in like, one of these, quote unquote championship caliber quotes, they went and just found somebody who's going to like click with these guys. And it's like, good job. It seems like everybody, I mean, even Kyrie, who, God bless him, speaks his mind. It's exactly what you want from media, and I'll leave it at that. Very much made it clear that he was like, okay.
Well, that brings me to my next question is, Matt, what's it like being a pawn?
Oh, dude, it's cool. Just kind of, you can only make, being a pawn, you can only go one move at a time, only forward. So pretty limited in terms of movement, but I'm it's good.
How does sage burning help in defending the pick and roll when you're matched up against another point guard?
I don't know, but man, they looked damn good at that preseason game. I was ready. I was like, dude, I might start saging everything.
We all
oh my God.
We all laugh at Kyrie, but
damn it, he is good.
I'm a believer in him, or I think that so maybe there is something to be said for a little sage burning. But
yeah,
about the coaching staff, in addition to bringing in Nash, was the way they rounded it out. You have a guy like Mike D'Antoni there on the bench, a guy who should be coaching another team. It's just like the greatest offensive coordinator consultant in basketball. And then you also have Amari on there as well. So I'm wondering just if there's been how that sort of dynamic has been. I mean, I know we've only had a couple of preseason games and all the media stuff, but how that sort of dynamic is playing out so far.
I mean, honestly, like it's hard to tell because of the distance, the virtual aspect of everything. And we haven't heard from any of, Mike D'Antoni or any of these other guys, which makes sense. So I just based on what I've seen on the court, honestly, their offense looks a lot like it did in the bubble. Just instead of Chris Chiozza and Tyler Johnson, you have Kyrie in there, and instead of Justin Anderson and Lance Thomas, you have Kevin Durant there. So it's like what they're doing right now, it's really loose, and they kind of mentioned that. I think a big part of this whole thing is that they only had like 2 weeks to figure this out. Like they were just like, all right, I guess we're just going to coast off talent because we've never played together. And that's, I mean, look, it's preseason. Who cares? Fine, whatever. But I mean, I think it works just fine being read and react with the guys that you have.
Yeah. I was actually wondering about that, considering that, your squad, the Nets, has a game against our squad, the Warriors, coming up. I believe it's opening night. Yeah. It's kind of a big deal. Where are some areas that you saw in the Nets defense that you may have some worries with? Greatest point guard, arguably of all time, coming into the building. What are your thoughts there on that matchup?
I think I'm beating this into the ground, but sometimes you have to do that. So I'm gonna be writing about this at some point today, and it's been something I've thrown up a bunch of clips. Depending upon how much DeAndre Jordan is playing, for him to park his butt in the paint and this extreme drop coverage and basically force, Brooklyn's point of attack defenders to just sort of hope for the best at ball screens. Interesting move. Wouldn't suggest it against Steph Curry. I think Steph Curry might drop like 15 threes if you have DeAndre Jordan just parked in the paint. So I think he's gonna score a lot. Tatum had a lot of open looks. Same with Jaylen Brown, and they didn't have particularly spectacular shooting nights. And you could say what you want about how the Nets looked like, but defensively right now, that's all the room that Curry needs. I don't love it. I don't love it. Meanwhile, Jared Allen, they played him really high, almost not quite at the level of the screen, but he had a couple of feet, and he's good enough at closing out that I think that's probably how you want to do things. Can you do that with DeAndre Jordan? I don't know. So you might be stuck with that.
It's a credit to DeAndre Jordan for bouncing back after those years where I thought the Warriors had just made him obsolete. I thought his career was going to be over.
Yeah.
And so, kudos to him for picking it back up.
He's got his pluses.
I was going to say, he looked at the 2012 Kendrick Perkins model and said, that's going to be me. Just get me in, give me like a couple touches in the first quarter, and then I'm just going to sit on the bench the rest of the game.
Yeah, I really hope, and this feels, I don't even feel bad about saying this. I hope they cut his playing time as the season progresses. Honestly, there's no reason for, if you're in the playoffs, to be playing DeAndre Jordan 30 minutes. It doesn't really make sense to me. And also I think it will help him a lot if he's giving you really focused, condensed minutes. You see all the pluses from him, and you're not exposing him for big long durations of the game. So, I think for them, if you can just get him out there, have him do a bunch of post play. He's still a really nice playmaker, and I thought that was a big hub for them, was using him at that high post and letting him find Kyrie on backdoors and stuff like that.
Right.
I like that a lot. Very Warriors-esque, by the way, to use him as almost the Bogut on offense.
Yeah, right.
On offense. So I think there's pluses with him. I don't want to just it be, me taking a dump on DeAndre Jordan this whole time. But I do think, it's something to be wary of for sure.
Please give us your predictions for opening night Warriors Nets. Go.
Oh, put me on the spot. Boy, I think the Nets win by 15. I think they're going to smoke them. I really do. I'm sorry. I don't.
Oh,
I'm buying into the preseason hype. I can't help it. They look great, and the Warriors.
I bring you on the show. You're supposed to be from the Bay like us, okay? You're supposed to be from the Bay. We just had the E42 short versus last night. Where's your Bay pride, bro? Where's your Bay pride?
This is you clearly
submerged in snow. All right, it's submerged in snow today. I don't know.
you didn't watch that. I just watched that first Nets, that Wizard game, and you had to remind yourself, well, they don't have Beal and Westbrook out there against them because they look. It was kind of alarming. You were like, oh no, this could be as good as we all think it is.
Yeah. I didn't think it was. I did not think they were going to look this in sync early on. They look good. They look like they've played together for a while, and I don't know how, because they haven't. But they're just, I don't know. I don't know what it is. They just look really in sync, and they're doing, for a group of guys that have been together for 2 weeks. Everything looks crisp so far. So. But you got to be disciplined defensively.
Who's going to guard Andrew Wiggins, the secret weapon?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think Steve Nash straps him on. Maybe we get Vaughn to strap him on as well. We should do that. Honestly, I think the Nets and the Warriors coaches could be a decent game in itself. That would be. Maybe that's what happens if we go to overtime.
Yo, man, Mike Brown isn't running up and down the court. That means y'all have fun. I'm going to go crush these tacos and have a Corona over here.
Jared Collins has more post moves than Rudy Gobert. Okay.
Where's his supermax?
Give the man the supermax.
Okay, Dr. Tom, your predictions for opening night, Nets Warriors. I mean, you are the biggest KD stan in the world. So.
I mean, man, these are going to be the toughest games of the year for me. But I do think, especially with Draymond out and Wiseman not having the full cam, I do think ultimately, and on the road too to start the season, I do think the Nets will probably win. I'm not by 15. I wouldn't surprise me if Steph goes off, and when Steph goes off, you've got a chance. But I could see it being and just that not being able to get those big stops that Draymond would provide at the end of the game, that's going to be the difference. I'm certainly high on this Warriors team, and I think they're going to be really good. But I think when you take that defensive anchor out of there against such an elite offensive combo like that, it's just unless like Kyrie's doing a Westbrook impression, or it's KD in those like games 4 and 5 against the Rockets in the Western Conference Finals, where they duped him into posting up so much. I think it's just not, they're not going to get those defensive stops, and that's going to be the difference.
Wow.
Give me some gold blood here. Give me some gold blood.
I mean, you guys brought up a lot of salient points. I'm not going to deny that. Everything you said makes a lot of sense. Have you guys ever been to Golden Corral?
Yes.
Have you ever been to Golden Corral? And like when you walk in, and just like there's so many different areas you can go to. They have seafood. They have like, Mexican food. They have Italian pizza, blah, blah. That's what Steph Curry's going to be like when he sees the Brooklyn defenders. He's like, who do I want to cook first? Like, guys, let's be honest. Steph Curry could decide, hey, let's just do a 1-4 pick and roll every time because I want to ISO. I want to ISO KD. I want to ISO KD every time and put him to test. Like, that could happen, and KD would be in trouble. We know this.
That said, no. KD's like the seafood, because at the Golden Corral you stay away from that. I would stay away from KD on the court too.
Steph Curry's coming for that man's neck.
It's funny you mentioned that. Nash mentioned about kind of not wanting to overextend KD early, so that would be tactical if Curry was like, yeah, I heard what Nash said. You're going to be guarding pick and roll
every single
30 times today. Yeah.
No, obviously the Nets should be favored. They're healthier. When you lose Klay Thompson, Hall of Famer, Draymond Green, Hall of Famer, that's going to hurt there. But this is James Wiseman's coming out party. Years from now, people are looking at House of Highlights and looking back like, wow, James Wiseman's first game, he had 20 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 blocks in 6 minutes. Like, it was amazing.
I do like him a lot. I really like Wiseman.
So, I don't know. I think it'll be close to 15 points. And, hey, I got Steph Curry with a game-winning shot.
Oh, wow.
This
is a storybook ending.
On KD.
On KD.
And Wiseman lifts it up on his shoulders, and they all march out together.
You monster.
Hey, man,
that wouldn't hit the same in a fanless arena. I don't know if that hit the same. I don't know.
Speaking of big bodies, we know James Harden's been on the trade block, and the Nets have been linked to him heavily. Now, as someone who I've seen you on that Twitter box being very vocal, talking about if you can get a chance to get James Harden,
you do it.
You do it. Now, we're kind of shocked by that, considering you already have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and a team that has made the playoffs without those guys recently.
Yeah.
Why would you mix it up?
Health, honestly, like if you really, really want to boil this down, I think part of it is a talent grab. And then part of it is, look, as great as Kyrie looked and as spectacular as he can be when he's out there. I don't know. Like, if he's missing for a playoff series, that's a huge loss versus if you have James Harden in there. And by the way, if it works between the three of those guys, it's just, I don't know. I think it makes a lot more sense. And we put all this emphasis on depth and all this stuff, but really when it becomes, when it really matters, all this depth, having whatever, I don't know, pick a random guy. Bruce Brown. I know. I love it. I agree.
You see how many shirts we've sold off this?
I know. I love it. And like, dude, fans eat that up. Like, you have people talking about, the Jeff Greens of the world and all these guys and Bruce Brown, who isn't even playing right now. That's all cool. It just, I don't think that stuff matters as much. Like, you don't care about guy 13 when you're in the playoffs as much. It's kind of the reality of the situation. So, it's the same thing with certain defensive coverages. Roster construction as well is one of those things that I think is a lot different in the regular season versus the postseason.
Yeah. Though the thing, like I do see your point about that kind of back of the roster and that idea of like strength in numbers versus talent. Like yeah. But the thing is, if you look at the Nets, at least from my outsider, I watched that first preseason game perspective. You look at the not necessarily like the back of the bench, whatever, but like guys like Spencer Dinwiddie, and then even he didn't even play, but Karis LeVert. You have these players who, if you maybe add it up together, you're still not getting to that level of Harden's talent, but those they seem like the kind of players who, I'm going to say Durant is as talented as we know he is, and if Kyrie is as talented as we think and he thinks he is, those are the players who it seems like you would want to keep, and they might level up, and you wouldn't have to sacrifice as much, what you would have to give up to get a guy like Harden. But is that just me, again, from not watching as much of the Nets, being removed from it, and, as a Warriors fan, having a deep-seated antipathy towards James Harden? Is that just all in play, or is there?
I get it, by the way. I get it. We don't have to sit here and pretend James Harden is the most fun player in the league to play next to.
How many
we don't have to do that.
Between Kyrie, KD, and then if you bring in Harden, like they're just gonna exceed the salary cap because they're gonna buy so many basketballs because they're just gonna be pounding the air out of them with all that ISO.
A lot of air pumps. A lot of air pumps.
So if you want my honest opinion, I think the biggest difference between the Warriors right now and what the Nets are is the Warriors. You have these guys like Iguodala, Draymond. They're wonderful players, but they're also connectors. They're guys that just build a sort of web of offensive cohesion. The Nets, as much as I love how many guys that they have that can create their own shots, I do feel like they're kind of maybe one ball handler too many. And it's early, so I could be completely wrong on this. In fact, I'd almost expect myself to be. But I do feel like we just need to see all of Kyrie, KD, Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert succeed all in the same game, because right now it feels like a little either or. And the guy out in that last game was Spencer Dinwiddie. He didn't quite seem comfortable in his spot. He's committed to playing a more glue guy role, which is awesome. And I think mentality is a big part of it. But at the end of the day, you kind of are who you are as a basketball player. And it's very hard to undergo such a dramatic change like I think the Nets need him to make. So I don't know which one of those guys you would do, or move. But, if, to be honest, a good way to solve that is to package them both together and bring back one player. I'm just doing the math here.
That is selling this like a real estate agent.
Look, these are spacious bedrooms, okay? The photos are deceptive.
Yo, man, you get that angle. That money pit in Houston, how many times have we threw a Chris Paul, a Russell Westbrook down there and didn't yield anything out of it, but
yeah.
Okay, so how concerned are you about a Draymond less defense that still boasts Wiggins and Oubre, which Dub Nation believes is going to be like Jordan Pippen when it comes down to the defensive end?
You guys are very enthusiastic about that. I will give you that.
Look, after what we had last year, we need reasons to believe again. Okay, and also having the big youngster James Wiseman's there. So first night out there, how are you expecting the Nets offense to perform against that Draymond-less defense?
I don't know who guards Durant. Who is it? Pascal? Is it?
It's a team defense, okay?
Man.
Also you could say that,
it's good. I don't know about all that. Same way I feel like Curry is going to just tear up their drop coverage. Durant has just been shooting over everybody and getting by guys. So I don't know. I have no idea.
We've guarded Durant before.
Awesome.
I'll tell you that. Have you seen the Western Conference Finals?
What'd you say?
Have you seen the Western Conference Finals? I believe we limited Kevin Durant to 30 points a game. Okay, we know how to defend him.
Hey,
different cast. Different cast.
You don't have Russell Westbrook throwing up so many bricks. You could build a house for Habitat for Humanity with them. So let's just slow down with those comparisons.
No, I think KD's going to cook. I think he's going to cook. Especially without Draymond there, that's like the defensive, quarterback there. So
that would have been fun. It's a shame. It's like a big shame that he's not playing because
when you say it would have been fun, are you saying it would have been fun because you want to see Kevin Durant cook Draymond? Is that what you're saying, Matt?
I want to see trash talking. I want to see pushing. Like I want this to get personal. That's what I want. I want it. And we're not going to get that.
You'd never think someone could get thrown out of a game with no fans there, and yet Draymond would have found a way.
Always screaming at somebody. Okay, so kind of pivoting a bit and going out to just the conference you have. Like obviously out west, I believe the Warriors are definitely a playoff team. I mean, as long as you have healthy Steph and bodies around them, you're going to the playoffs. We've seen this before. Okay. But when we get to that mix of where they stack, I mean, it's going to be a long season, not as long as usual, but still 72 games. That's a lot to figure out there. But in the East, you have a different dilemma there. People are making you guys the cheap pick to come out and win the conference. So how does it feel having that pressure on the squad?
Honestly, I think they're going to be a really good regular season team. I wasn't sure, but you watch the offense look as good as it does, and offense is just, it's more important in the regular season than defense. I think that changes in the postseason. Regular season, they are going to cruise. I mean, it's going to be kind of what the Mavericks did last year, where they're just going to be absolutely insane offensively and slide into the playoffs. You take that model, maybe improve it a little bit, though that feels a little hot takey because that was the best offense in history. But at least you have like the gleam of or the sheen of star power. I think that is a little bit demoralizing if you're the Charlotte Hornets or whatever night to night.
Welcome to the big baller zone.
I know. Hey, he's dished a couple passes, so maybe I got to be careful. But no, I think like. For them, they are going to be able to cruise in a weaker conference with a pretty prolific offense.
Okay. And who concerns you the most out of that Eastern Conference bracket so far?
Nobody's agreed with me on this. I'm going to keep saying it. Milwaukee, for the obvious reasons. They've never had a guy to guard Giannis ever. Katie's looked pretty decent defensively. That's a big ask, though. I mean, that is a big, big ask. And then it becomes like, okay, I think Jared Allen's probably their second best guy for Giannis, which I don't feel awesome about those, but they at least have the requisite height to do it. We'll see what that turns into. I really like Miami. I think I'm the only person on earth who really likes what they did and thinks that model is sustainable. And I do believe there's going to be internal growth for a bunch of their guys, but Bam especially. And for whatever reason, I look at that and I say, there's real proof of concept that that's a really tough offense to stop in the playoffs with all the dribble handoff action they do. And these guys just cutting off each other and just really confusing the defense. They're also ridiculously conditioned all the time. And I think that's really important for a season where, let's be honest, COVID-19 may be a factor. If you have guys missing or teams missing players, depending upon who those guys are.
Right.
If you're a ridiculously militant team and you're just always on it all the time, and you have guys that step in, I think that gives you a serious advantage in the same way that the bubble really helped them being that way. So I like them a lot. And I think that a lot of people are overlooking them. People are looking at the Celtics. Celtics, I don't know what's going on with Kemba. No idea. Raptors got worse. I think they're going to miss a lot of. I think they're going to miss.
I can't wait for our Toronto friends to see this.
I don't care. I'll say it. I've said it before. You guys got worse. By the way, OG Anunoby takes a step, and I'm completely wrong. I'm completely wrong in all that. But I do think they're going to miss those bigs. And then who did I not even mention? I haven't even mentioned
Philly. You didn't mention the Sixers, who are the team that I'm sort of like they're my pick. Maybe I'm just a sucker because I'm just like eventually they're going to get it together. But
who's their closer? They never answered that question.
Doc Rivers the closer. Doc Rivers, okay. You'll coach him up, okay? You'll coach him up.
So
wait, it's not Seth Curry? I thought that's why they brought him in.
Yeah.
Okay. If there was ever a coach who could maximize who Ben Simmons is, and obviously Ben's still young, he can still grow. And we're talking about growing with a jump shot. If there's any coach who can get a point guard with no jump shot to dominate, it's Doc Rivers. You saw what he did with Rondo?
That man got 2 rings.
Come on. He made Rondo look like a monster, okay?
Blake started shooting under him too, so, maybe it happens. Who knows? But this year, though, I don't know, man. You're going from 0 to being
well, I think that's terrifying about the Nets. I think that, and the reason I like the team as currently constituted, although you have a closer eye than I do, is the fact that you have multiple guys who you have to account for. And with Kyrie, you never want to double team the point guard, obviously, because that means the rest of the defense is already in scramble mode. But he forces you to consider it. And then, of course, if you double team Kevin Durant, it doesn't matter. He sees right over it. So those are two guys that you have to account for with nuclear red alert awareness. So when I'm looking at those teams that have to defend them, I'm like, okay, worst come to worst, let's say both teams, are having trouble, offensively, and it's a defensive battle. So it's a 95-96 ball game with a minute left. I'm terrified of Kyrie and Kevin Durant. I'm terrified.
Yep. That's the thing. Like, they are in good shape no matter what happens. Like, they don't get James Harden, whatever. They're going to have depth and guys that can do things. And, you have your mid-inning relievers, like your Spencer Dinwiddie's, your Karis LeVerts. They're going to be fine. Bringing James Harden might be a little bit of a period of trying to make all the pieces work. I wouldn't be surprised. They also might be just awesome out the gates because, those guys are really good at basketball. So I think overall they're going to be in great shape no matter what.
Wouldn't that defense worry though a little bit?
Man, the defense is already worrying me. Let's be honest. None of the guys that are on right now they don't have many stoppers. Like, Kevin Durant might be their best defender, I think, by a considerable margin. Maybe you could throw Jared Allen in there, but with what Kevin Durant can offer in terms of guarding multiple positions, it's just like nobody else on the roster. He's also coming off a severe injury, and it's going to take him a little while to get his feet under him.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, how long is that leg? How much stress can it handle?
I don't know.
And you have like you say about the regular season, like that it's different. And hopefully by the time you get to the playoffs, you're kind of reset, and he's a little bit as back to normal as one can be after that kind of injury. But yeah, that is because you look at him and he would be your defensive stopper most likely, and that's a lot to ask of someone who is coming off that injury and is also carrying even if Kyrie is still cooking, he's still carrying a pretty substantial load on offense, and that's going to, for anyone, that's going to be. I mean, isn't this why they tell us Harden doesn't play defense? Is because he's just using all that energy on offense. So if you're asking someone to do the equivalent of both, that's where if from the Brooklyn perspective, I'd be a little apprehensive.
Although if Joe Harris is hitting, it doesn't matter. If Joe Harris
has been open,
they're going to win every single game. Okay, that man is pulling up with the utmost confidence, hand to face. That doesn't matter, splashing. I remember back in the day when we had Eddie House on the Celtics, James Posey on the Heat and Celtics. Those guys, if they hit threes, you just knew that you couldn't overcome that. I'm wondering, is the situation that kind of the Miami Heat found themselves in last year in the finals when they were like, oh my gosh, like Duncan Robinson is like one of our best offensive weapons because he's just the floor. However, defensively, LeBron is making a beeline for his neck every single time, and we're hemorrhaging points. Do you think Joe Harris has enough defense to stay in the court?
He's big enough, right? Like he's big enough. He's bulky enough. I don't feel terrible about him in particular. It's like let's be honest. I'm sorry. If they have DeAndre Jordan and Kyrie Irving on the floor in an NBA Finals together, that is going to get picked apart. That is just it is. It's going to get picked apart on both ends, and it's not even going to be. I just
what if he burns more sage?
Imagine. He can burn all the sage he wants. If you're guarding, whatever, if whoever it is, if you are guarding one end of the pick and roll with Kyrie, who's good sometimes at getting around screens, others not so much, and DeAndre Jordan, who right now is parked in the paint, and to be fair to him, there were points at the end of last year where he really started getting a little bit closer to that screen. Regardless, if you're doing that, you're playing the Lakers, and DJ is guarding Anthony Davis. And I don't know how, maybe LeBron's in the mix, maybe it's Dennis Schroeder, whoever. I I can't help but sit there and be like, ooh, I don't love that.
LeBron just sees, Kyrie, and he thinks about those comments he made, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna make that kid pay for what he said.
I don't like that matchup at all for the Nets right now. I don't, and I just, I think they could definitely get to the finals, but oof, boy, I really think that the Lakers are going to dictate a lot of how that series is going to go. Versus the other.
Whoa. I'm not sure the Lakers going to make it to the finals first. Can the Warriors play?
I'm liking the Lakers. I'm liking them.
Okay, so speaking of drop back centers, which DeAndre Jordan and Jared Allen definitely embody, we saw Gobert get the supermax. Okay, Gobert just got paid for dropping back. Okay, so how much is Jared Allen worth today?
I don't know. I saw that.
At least the max, right?
See that? You see that? You see these Plumlee deals? Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what is going on right now. Like, we know all this stuff about basketball. We know that you cannot play drop coverage beyond 2 rounds of the playoffs. The Milwaukee Bucks, who won, 10,000 basketball games in the last 2 years, lose in the second round. Like, what are we doing here? I don't know, man. I don't get it. I don't get it. Maybe it's an inefficiency I'm missing, but that Gobert contract, I could not believe my eyes.
I've been told by a couple people on Twitter that it's just because I don't watch basketball that I raise my eyes at that contract. So I don't know.
Jazz fans, huh? Yeah. Did they tell you about his screen assist and stuff? I don't know.
Yes, they actually did.
It's Kurt Skinner. He's really he's a top 5 offense by himself.
Like, okay,
can't even play past 2 rounds of the playoffs.
My favorite argument is that the only times that you've seen the Jazz, eliminated is by the Warriors, Rockets, who were like, 2 of the most elite offensive teams in the history of basketball, and then they blew a 3-1 lead to the Nuggets last year. Okay, so they're basically saying, if you basically erase Steph Curry and James Harden, Chris Paul, and Jamal Murray, the Jazz look pretty good. And
yeah, I mean, if you got rid of the good teams in the conference, like we are there. What are we doing here? You're going to play those teams
every year.
I don't get it. It's so ridiculous.
Akeem didn't say, well, if we just got rid of David Robinson and whatever, that path would be so much easier. Like, no, you got to go and beat that guy. He's,
Can we go? Somebody go talk to Coach Bud and the 2015 Hawks. Be like, yeah, here's the thing. Like, you guys are gonna get there if we get rid of the LeBron Kyrie cast. I think you guys got this.
I don't see how you supermax a guy who, when the other team goes small, doesn't lick his lips and go yum yum yum. I'm about to go off these young kids. I'm gonna dominate these 6'5" guys. When he's out there like, oh man, they're going small. I gotta really try to survive out here. That's not a good look. That's not a good look.
I get it. I mean, I get it from the idea that they're like, okay, if we let him go for probably not a great package, because who's going to be trading for Rudy Gobert looking for a lot of money? Then it's like Donovan Mitchell.
Pick up Jared Allen.
Hey, I guess. I mean, that would be an interesting deal, but I mean, I don't know, man. I think they were stuck in that situation. You let him go, then it's Mitchell, and I bet it's still actually a decent team, but a team that's worse. And all of a sudden, does Mitchell want out? Is he looking at this team like, God, I took this extension and you guys just got worse immediately? I think they're in a tough spot, but they're locked into the 5 seed now. Enjoy that life.
Locked.
Though it was interesting because I heard at least a couple people say with Gobert where he is a player where we're getting our jokes off, and they are all deserved because that man is only is getting that money because he's tall and that's it. But he is also a player who, if on a team that has championship aspirations and you're looking for just someone to be like a defensive anchor, you might make some big package to take him. And so that's not
anymore.
Why
would you want 5 years of
that's the thing. But also that about the not getting a good potential package in return, that's where it's like, well, maybe you would get something decent. I do think it would, it would just sort of really cripple that Jazz team. And I don't know what the fallout, with Mitchell is. And it's, I think you're contractually obligated to say, well, it's good that a player drafted by a small market team is staying there and so on and so forth. That's true. But I don't know. I get that. And I get, if somebody's saying, well, what are you saying to your fan base? And that makes sense. But to max that with like, what is it, like the third biggest contract in NBA history for someone who like has not gotten out of the second round, and it's like you said, is routinely shown up by when a team goes small and so on and so forth, like that. I mean, yeah, you're hoping, well, the fans are just going to like us because we're just going to keep getting that 4 seed and that 5 seed.
Right.
Last season, they I wrote about this on LetsGoWarriors. It was like everything kind of, you felt like it went as right as it could, say for, the global pandemic, but everything went as right as it could for that Jazz team, and they're still the 6th seed. Like, I'm just really skeptical of how much further they can go and how much better they can get. And I don't think maxing out Gobert, and even I'm just not a big Donovan Mitchell fan. I think giving him that extension too, like I just worry about the ceiling for the money you're putting into those two players.
You just hate the Utah Jazz.
I mean, there's no Jazz in Utah. Like, that's the thing.
There it is.
Trade with there's more Pelicans in Utah than there are Jazz. Wow. Like, just give them anyways, but I digress.